This is the Art Beauty Podcast where we tell the real truth about the fake shit. And today, my fabulous co-host is Damon Sununtnasuk. He's the founder and CEO of Natural Cure Labs. Damon, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Amber. Thanks for having me today.
So I want to start this off, really a story for all of our listeners, because, you've heard me say again, time and time again, podcast is unsponsored, unbranded. And the reason that I did that is because I felt like there was not a space where consumers could go and listen and be informed without a hard sales pitch. And we all understand there's a place for branded media, and it's part of, the world that we live in. But I wanted this to kind of be a really more of an honest space and give brands like yourself, Damon, like Natural Cure Labs, the place to come on and help educate people without me having to say, this is the best product ever. So an interesting story. The reason that I'm telling you this is because Damon actually reached out to me to see about sponsoring the podcast, because when we did a piece on clean beauty a while back, we did a great episode with Teju Owoye, who is, she owns Clean Rebellion, and she talked about some of the products that she loves and uses. One of them was Monolaurin by Natural Cure Labs. And so lo and behold, here we are. Damon reached out and said, hey, do you want to sponsor it? I said, hey, how about instead of sponsoring us, instead of paying, why don't you come on and educate us? So I hope you guys all enjoy this. So thank you. Sorry for that very long-winded intro. How's it going, Damon?
Indeed. No, it's going great. All things considered, with the pandemic and everything, it's going really well. And we were so flattered to hear our product mentioned during the Clean Beauty episode. Teju is amazing and a fan. We've actually connected with her offline a couple of times, and we share very parallel stories and histories with our companies and sort of the mission-driven products that we deliver.
Tell us about that, because when you popped on today, now a lot of my pre-show goes with email, and sometimes you get a little thumbnail, but we all know how people put up photos of themselves that could be like 10, 15 years old. I mean, myself included. I was surprised. You seem very, very young, Damon, to be the founder of a supplement. It's a supplement company, correct?
Indeed, it is. It's a nutrition company, you could say, for both humans and most recently pets. But yeah, we focused on supplements
as well. Okay. But so how did this come about?
Yeah, let me tell you the story. So I was actually living and working overseas for several years, and I came back to the US.
Whereabouts?
I lived in Europe for many years. I worked in London for several years. I did my grad school in England. I spent some time in Spain and Germany. And most recently, I was in South Korea.
Oh, amazing. Sorry. I'm like, I miss travel. So I just needed a little bit of that. Okay. Now
Trust
we can
me,
go back
me
to
too. We're in the same boat. So after spending several years overseas in countries all the countries I listed all offer universal healthcare, right? Mm-hmm. I came back to the US looking for a job and clearly not established yet and not covered. And I felt myself in this strange position where I was very conscious of my exposure or my risk to getting sick. And I empathized a lot with the 27.5 million Americans that don't have medical insurance, or even the 54 million adults who have expressed the inability to pay for needed drugs in the last year, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so being in this amazing incubator in San Francisco, I took this thought and this sentiment and I applied it to some coaching I received from some friends who were really, really big fans of coconut oil, not just from cooking and sort of skin therapy application, but things that I'd never heard of, like putting coconut oil in your mouth, which is called oil pulling. And you hold it there for a few minutes, and it's meant to extract toxins and other potential pollutants that from your teeth and gums. So it's be very healthy for oral health. And that got me down this path, like, oh my gosh, like, can we apply some of the science and some of these less traditional applications of natural elements like coconut oil to solving the needs for, better health and immune system support. And that's how we got started.
Amazing. I mean, I know that there is such a push lately. I think that holistic and homeopathic remedies have been around forever, but I do feel that more and more people are really going to that, trying to get away from some of the, traditional pharmaceuticals, and seeing, can we heal ourselves with more natural ingredients?
I
Um,
couldn't agree more. And in fact, I'm sorry to cut you off, but you got me thinking. There's an amazing parallel between travel, which clearly you and I are both, advocates for, and homeopathic versus pharmaceutical treatments,
oh
right?
yeah.
So anyone who's traveled to a new country may have experienced a little bit of digestion issues, right? And the first
That's why I travel with
course of
acidophilus all the time. We can say it. Your
right.
tummy gets screwed up between the travel and the different cuisines. Yeah.
Exactly right. Exactly. But unfortunately, at least here in the US and in many Western countries, the first line of attack is to issue some sort of antibacterial drug, right? And while, of course, it does help treat the issue, the underlying issue, which is maybe a bacterial infection, it also has this unfortunate side effect of sort of blowing up all the healthy gut flora it takes many months or years to develop, right? And so there are naturopathic solutions to help sort of ease some of these conditions without the need of going overboard and destroying something that might really be healthy for you.
Well, I'm very sensitive to antibiotics, so I am allergic to most antibiotics out there. And so I just can't take them. So I have to wait until there's something. And you'd be surprised at how many things people take antibiotics for that I'm just like, you don't have to do that. There's certain things you absolutely have to take antibiotics for. I know, like, if a urinary tract infection gets really bad, you need an antibiotic. It will spread to your kidneys. I know from personal experience, not fun. But things like bronchitis, which I feel like they will normally give you antibiotics, you actually don't have to take it. If it progresses to be really bad, sure you can, but by drinking lots of fluids, you can help to break up that mucus. So I'm very sensitive when it comes to taking antibiotics. And when I travel, I always take probiotics with me,
Right.
because I feel like if your stomach is a little upset, that can help.
Absolutely. And I'm not suggesting that antibiotics are necessarily a bad thing. I just
Right.
think that oftentimes we jump to the antibiotic
Oh,
route a little
totally.
bit sooner than we may
Yeah.
need to. And I feel like there are alternatives that could be just as impactful without some of the harsher side effects, right?
So, okay. So you are back in the United States. You're realizing I don't have insurance, which, like you said, so many people don't have access to, especially now.
Yeah.
And how did it go from, like, okay, now here I am, and I know that there's natural cures? By the way, I traveled to Chile many, many moons ago. And, speaking about homeopathic remedies, I had a bit of a cold. And what they do when you have a cold is they gave me, I think it was like a shot. I'm trying to remember what the alcohol was, but they gave me alcohol. Maybe it was even just beer, and then wrapped me in a warm blanket, and they were like,
Okay.
sweat it out.
Oh, wow.
But listen, I do think that there's something to be said of the ways that, like, a lot of cultures will handle different illnesses, where we'll be like, take a Tylenol, cold and flu. They're like, no, it was drink a beer, wrap me in a blanket, and they were like, sweat it out. I mean, I'm still here, so whether it was
Indeed.
that, I don't know, but I do think that a lot of these sort of homeopathic recipes, garlic is another one, right?
Oh,
That's like the
sure.
panacea. Um, so, not to digress too much, but I had no idea. So garlic can be used for everything. And for my women listeners out there, again, because I have such a problem with antibiotics, you can actually use cloves of garlic, wrap them in cheesecloth. People are going to be horrified that I'm about to say this, but stick them in, up the Britney Spears. And that's really good if you have things like yeast infections, or it even helps alleviate some of the problems that you might have when you're having urinary tract infections. The garlic is a cure all. You want to make sure you don't nick the garlic, because that's really painful. Sorry,
Amber,
did I
that's
just did I just gross you out?
not at all.
um,
I'm not surprised one bit because, you touched on a really important subject here is that there's an incredible amount of research behind some, botanicals and herbal and other ingredient supplements that are really well founded, I feel. At the quick search on Google Scholar or the National Institutes of Health, it's called PubMed, NCBI, will pull up a mountain of incredible research that helps validate a lot of these assumptions that we make, or maybe hearsay around these naturopathic options, right? And garlic has an enormous amount of research behind it, as does many other botanicals.
Raw garlic too, when you're having a cold, throat issues.
Oh, for sure. My father used to, if he had a toothache, he would like put a garlic clove right on the gum line, and it alleviated it. No problem.
And it alleviates garlic, also a raw garlic clove. And then I'll stop my garlic love. I grew up in, on a lake, and we used to have things called horseflies, which were like big, mean meanies. And when they would bite you, you would have serious welts. Well, lo and behold, my mother found out that if you put a clove of garlic on top of, after getting bit, if you just tape it on, it would actually draw out a lot of that poison and heal so much quicker. So anyhow, okay, so how do we go from you knowing that there were benefits to these homeopathic or healthy natural cure lab, to creating a company?
Exactly right. Yeah. So it got me down this path of research-based, naturally derived immune support supplements, right? And I thought that there must be an opportunity to allow people to gain access to these naturopathic remedies, despite access to medical insurance or these prescription drugs, right? And the problem is, and this actually brings us back to the very beginning of the call, is that there's an enormous amount of misinformation out there, right? And a lot of products, unfortunately, chase fads, or they exploit people's misconceptions of what products are meant to do or deliver. And so I wanted to take a very research-based approach to delivering dietary supplements, right? So I spent an enormous amount of time researching supplements, ingredients, antioxidants, vitamins and minerals, botanicals, herbal extracts that have legitimate research behind them, right?
Okay.
And we work with a group of medical professionals, doctors and PhDs, and medical doctors, PhDs, and other scientists and other industry professionals to try to validate this research. Make sure that we're complying with different rules and regulations for the United States, and create formulas that are truly going to be helpful and don't chase those fads.
I want to touch on that. So I was interested, and it was when Teju a while ago was like monolaurin, because as from what I understand, and we'll get more into this, monolaurin though is a derivative of coconut oil, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So when the coconut oil, now my dear friend Ryan loves it, throws coconut oil on everything. I happen to feel that it's comedogenic. So for me, it's a little pore clogging. It's a little heavy, but I know there's some people who swear by it. I tried the bullet coffee, where you did a shot of coconut oil in. I don't know. I wasn't necessarily convinced with some of these more trendy fads. But
alternative applications, sure.
Yes. And I know that we have to be careful with what we say here. So please correct me, because our supplements, they're not regulated by the FDA, or are they?
Yeah, so supplements are in this interesting space where, like, the Food and Drug Administration, by its own definition, by its own acronym, focuses a lot on the regulation of food and on drugs. And it wasn't until, I think it was around 1990 with the DSHEA Act, that they started to really put some guidelines in place for dietary supplements, right?
Right.
And so you're right. There are a lot of and that's a good thing, right? So I think it was a little bit Wild West before the DSHEA Act of the 90s. And with that now, there's a lot more transparency and a lot more compliance and clarity for dietary supplements. But you're right. Dietary supplements are not meant to treat, cure, or diagnose any disease. And as a research-driven company who wants to be compliant, we can't make any big statements. Right, exactly. But what we can do is we can talk about the immune support attributes that these ingredients have, and we can talk about the history, the applications, how it's viewed in other segments of the market as well. It's not just dietary supplements, but there's a lot to unpack here.
And there is. And I guess also we can talk, maybe you can't, but I can talk anecdotally because we had Teju on. She was a former model, now owns this clean company. And was she sponsored by you at the time that she was on? I don't think she was,
not
right?
at all.
No, okay. So
I wasn't
full
familiar.
disclosure. Yeah. So she loved this and she felt that monoluarin was great. And she said that from her research, again, that there were a lot of studies that sort of indicated that it was antimicrobial, maybe antiviral. And I know that you can't say that. I'm just saying what we sort of talked about on the other podcast. And when you read the reviews of products, yours specifically on Amazon, there were, I think it was like almost 500 reviews on this product for people who said they had cold sores or herpes and that their outbreaks were less or that they don't have them anymore. That was a big one that I read about. So clearly there is some also anecdotal support for this.
Right. And to be clear, we don't have any paid sponsors. We don't have any brand ambassadors or anything like that. The people who enjoy our product are really legitimate and honest raving fans. And we have such an incredible base of customers that have stuck with us from day one. I think over 35% of our customers are repeat customers, which is really great and a testament to the sort of the quality and transparency that we try to strive for in a very opaque space like dietary supplements.
So, okay, where do we buy your products, first of all?
Oh, that's very flattering a question to ask because I wasn't expecting this amazing plug. But sure, any online marketplace. We're on Amazon and Walmart and Overstock and eBay.
I like to ask that because sometimes, especially when I get brands on, I think that there's like a lot of question. I'm a huge Amazon fan. Amazon, I love you.
Most people are.
But I think that there's a lot of question like, is this real? Is this not?
Absolutely. And I'm really happy you bring that up because we don't have any resellers or distributors. Everything that you buy in any marketplace is being fulfilled and sold directly by us as a company. Great. Because you're right. In a market like dietary supplements, trust is super important. And in order to develop that with customers, you don't want to risk or gamble with fraudulent products or things of that nature. So we take it very, very seriously. Everything you buy online is sold and fulfilled by us.
So, okay. So now let's focus on monolaurin, right? Because that's what, that's what Teju loved. Can you tell us a little bit about what monolaurin is?
Absolutely. It has a fascinating history. So monolaurin is actually a derivative of something called lauric acid. Lauric acid is a medium chain, 12 carbon atom fatty acid that's found naturally in things like palm kernel oil and coconut oil, but also in mother's breast milk. Lauric acid constitutes 6.2% of mother's breast milk. And anecdotally, as I understand it, it was in the 1960s that a hypothesis was formed that infants who have virtually no or very little immune system response yet, how are they not constantly getting ill? And the suggestion was that it was something in the mother's breast milk that was helping the infant support immunity, right? And so lauric acid was isolated, and although it's only 6.2% of breast milk, it's 50% of coconut oil. So half of the fatty acids in coconut oil are lauric acid. And so if you produce monolaurin from lauric acid in its supplement form. Lauric acid on itself can actually be very irritating to the skin and mucous membranes and stomach. But monolaurin is actually FDA GRAS listed. So GRAS is an acronym that stands for generally regarded as safe. Okay. And it's used in a lot of industries right now, not just dietary supplements. Dietary supplements is actually a more modern application of monolaurin and lauric acid. So the cosmetic industry has been using monolaurin for many years as a surfactant. And as an excipient for cosmetic production. It helps keep the cosmetics more fresh and clean and shelf stable. It's used in food production. So for example, an avocado or an orange that you might might come across at a Whole Foods, it has probably been treated on the outside with monolaurin because of the antimicrobial properties that it can exhibit in certain conditions. It really helps maintain like the shelf stableness of some of these products.
Wow. How does that work when you spray something on the outside? Is it keeping away? Well, it's not bugs. It's actually keeping away bacteria.
Sure. So when a piece of produce is bruised during transit, you're basically breaking the outer protective membrane of the fruit, and you're allowing spoilage to happen through bacteria or other microbes. And by helping to maintain and protect that outer layer, I think that's how you're able to keep products a lot more safe during transit.
Okay, so with this monolaurin, are there certain people or certain applications that you think that it's good for, or that maybe there's some research backed to show? Again, I know we can't say this is going to cure this,
Never.
but you do have a lot of research behind this. So what are some of the
Absolutely.
applications that people would take monolaurin for?
Sure. Yeah. Apart from these commercial applications that we talked about, sort of the human health applications are quite broad. In general, it's all about immune system support, right?
Hmm.
And as you rightly stated, there are, in last count, over 60 published research articles that explore a wide variety of applications, both in vitro, which means like in the lab and like in a petri dish, and in vivo, which means in a body, not necessarily a human body, but a living thing, whether it's like a lab mouse or rabbit or something like that. But it's great because they can test these hypotheses and replicate results, and it's really fascinating to read up on this. And as you rightly said earlier, the majority of this research covers some really interesting applications for it's potential antimicrobial, antibacterial, potentially antiviral.
Can you tell us about any of these studies that really sort of wowed you?
Yeah, I would love to. Let's see. I'm hoping I'm not getting myself in trouble by recanting some of these studies, but I encourage everyone that's listening or watching to go out and look for the research yourself. Don't trust anyone, especially in today's age.
And where do we go with
Especially
that?
given the climate.
PubMed?
Exactly right. Yeah. So PubMed is run by the National Institutes of Health and NCBI. It's a government website where you can search all of the published research that is in this national archive. It's an amazing source. I highly recommend it to anyone. But what you can encounter are some of these incredible studies, right, about the inactivation of various microbes in laboratory settings, again, both in vitro and in vivo. The one that I really enjoyed the most, and again, I'm just recanting a study that I personally read, was a study involving, I remember the Syrian golden hamsters. I thought it was so funny, the laboratory setup that they had. But they tested Giardia lambia. And Giardia is the largest, it's a bacteria, and it causes diarrhea when ingested. And it's found frequently in stagnant water or polluted streams, things of that nature. And unfortunately, it's the largest cause of malnutrition in the world because small children will ingest this from a polluted lake. Exactly. And so I was fascinated by this study. So what they did is the scientists used monolaurin to see how it would impact the Syrian golden hamster's reaction to Giardia. And what I loved about the study is they infected the poor hamster with Giardia,
Oh,
and then they treated it with monolaurin, right? And the rate at which the hamsters got better was outstanding. Something like 98% of the hamsters fully recovered with the introduction of monolaurin. Well, for me, what was more fascinating was they did the inverse. They gave some hamsters monolaurin before exposing them to the Giardia lambia bacteria. And something like, and I don't want to misquote here, but maybe 60% never got sick at all. So I
wow.
found that study to be so eye-opening and so incredible. It's not to suggest that the same results can translate over to a human population, because this was, again, done in a very controlled setting with laboratory animals. But I mean, clearly further research is needed and further studies are required to really unpack its potential with humans.
So, okay, how much you know what I'm always interested in?
Tell me.
I go to like a Dwayne Reed, or I go online, and there are so many supplements. I recently, I've been really honest with everybody. I had some plastic surgery, and my plastic surgeon sent me a regimen that I had to start taking prior to having the surgery to help and heal. But it was like, I don't know, 10 different pills and about $300 worth of supplements. It was insane. I have to admit, I mean, I feel great. So, I mean, maybe it worked. But, but how do we know, like, how many supplements are you taking a day?
Oh, that's a great question. I'd like to respond in two ways, because one is like being really selective about the supplements that you take and making sure that you're getting the right kind and the right dosage, but also like how does one select the right supplement? Because like you said, you walk into a Dwayne Reed, you walk into a CVS or Walgreens, it's an entire aisle, it's floor to ceiling with bottles and labels. And how do you approach that, right? So for me, I take a multivitamin. So we have one. I don't know if I can give a plug, but
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah.
here's one of our multivitamin immune supports. Has 16 different vitamins, herbs, antioxidants, minerals, and botanicals in it, and of course monolaurin, right? And so it's not over the top, but I, like many people, I think
You're only taking those two every day?
that's right. Well, because
Great.
one has 16 ingredients, the other one is a single ingredient. But it also depends. Depends on potentially the season that you're in. Is it cold and flu season? Is it allergy season? Am I traveling? Am I feeling a lot of stress from work? You have to listen to your body and respond in due turn. I feel that there are probably some daily drivers that you'd take, and then there are ones that you may choose to react to depending on your personal situation.
Amazing. Well, but like, and now again, so monolaurin, what I tended to see in the reviews, and again, this is not right. This is anecdotal. People going on and saying, "Hi, it helped me." I saw a lot with cold sores. I feel like Teju was also like it really helps with stress. Is that correct? Is that what
She
you
told me
find?
strep throat.
And
She
strep
used
throat. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Strep throat. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
so I'm happy you brought that up. So let's see, the dosage on the bottle is deliberately open, right? So it says take one capsule 2 to 6 times a day. So gosh, like that's a pretty big spectrum, right? And it's
right.
again to sort of acknowledge and reflect on the fact that people's bodies all respond to dietary supplements in different ways. Some people's immune systems may be compromised in different ways than others. Some people, again, may be taking it sort of maintain overall health. Some people may choose to take it when they're feeling a little bit more stress from, from an external source. And so, for that reason, it's recommended that, of course, like any dietary supplement, people work with their general practitioner to get coaching and review everything that they take, but also to listen to their body and don't overdo it and try to dial it in as you get used to a supplement.
I mean, I respect that, but I'm also, I know arnica, right? Arnica is one of the things that I take for bruising, right? So before I go get Botox, before I go get fillers, but it's also like take depending on the thing. It's like chew 1 to 2 tablets 2 to 8 times a day, and it's like what? Who? Huh? Is it time based? Do I just take it? Will my body like I know if you take too much vitamin C, your body's going to pee it out. You essentially can't really I don't want to say you can't overdose on
Yeah.
it, but
Well, you're
but is it the same thing with like monolaurin? Is it the same thing? Is it better to like try to take as much as we can?
right. So you're touching on a really important fact here, which is called bioavailability, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, your body can only absorb so much at a time. Some things help with bioavailability, like consuming a vitamin with food can oftentimes help, or a fat soluble vitamin with a fatty food. Like a lot of like vitamin D or vitamin E may come in a carrier oil like MCT, which helps deliver that more effectively, right?
Right.
So again, like I think it depends on the sensitivity of the individual. Do you get upset stomachs easily by taking vitamins? Then maybe you should consider taking it with food. Um, are you one that you know, I think that spreading it out throughout the day or versus having it all in one go, I don't know the effect that may have, but usually people just choose to take things with meals.
So how many times a day do you take monolaurin?
Twice a
Ballpark.
day.
Twice
Yeah,
a day.
Yeah, with in the morning and in the evening.
Got it. Okay. Like breakfast and dinner or like
Exactly.
bed morning. Okay, gotcha. Okay. And you prefer to take it with food.
I mean, I don't have some sensitivity issues,
Right.
so I take it both ways. But for those that do, I mean, naturally, monolaurin has a very soapy taste, right? It's a natural characteristic of the supplement. So people with sensitive stomachs may get that sort of soapy taste or sensation after
Is
taking
it
a
like the
silly
fish burps if you take omegas?
something like that. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So chase it down with like something yummy and delicious to help
Precisely
relieve.
right. Exactly. And I wanted to touch on the other thing, which is like, we talked about the Dwayne Reed supplement aisle, right? And how overwhelming that can be for many people. And, I think that there are just a few things that people can do to educate themselves before selecting a supplement. Because honestly, not all supplements are created equal. There
Mm-hmm.
are compliance standards that are put into place by the FDA, but unfortunately, not everyone chooses to follow those. But, some easy things that you can identify, like, is this supplement made in the USA? Is it made using GMP manufacturing, like current GMP manufacturing policies? Um,
Will
you
it
know,
say that on the bottle? GMP, or you have to do some research
Sometimes they
into it?
will. Yeah, ours does. So ours says GMP manufacturing practice facility.
Okay.
GMP, for those unfamiliar, there are a few awarding bodies like UL and gosh, I forget the other one. It starts with a G. I'm embarrassed now, but there are these third-party awarding bodies that go and inspect the facilities for, how do they handle their raw ingredients? Um, do they have the right laboratory setup? Do they do the right testing protocols? And do they clean their equipment appropriately after every run? Those are really important things to avoid cross-contamination, for
Sure.
allergens, for maintaining organic certificates. These are really, really important things to look for. And that should be like your baseline where you start, right? And then there are other things that, people should be mindful of depending on diet or things of that nature. Like capsules, for example, they can be vegan or they could be animal based, right? They could
Right.
be
The
animal
gel.
gelatin, exactly, or um, like a vegetable cellulose. So all of our products are vegan and GMP manufactured. Are you sensitive to gluten? That's another thing that
Mm-hmm.
you might consider. All of our products are gluten free, and same thing for our GMOs. Like we very deliberately look for non-GMO ingredients, so we can again instill that sense of trust and premiumness with customers.
Now, I wonder too, I think that sometimes people will take things and I happen to know this from working with skincare, right? So, skincare, I was a representative for Murad for a while. And one of the things that we would hear is that, people like these instant results, but
Yeah,
skincare is not, unless you're doing Botox is pretty instant or filler or doing something with a knife. In a bottle, things for the most part aren't going to be instantly transformative. Makeup is, right? So, look at her skin here that's all red and now we put on this foundation and it's beautiful, but skincare takes a little bit of time. Same thing I assume with supplements, right? Like we do need to allow our body to adjust to them. Do you think, or am I
I
wrong?
do. Again, I think you're touching on a really important point here. As I said earlier, everyone's bodies respond differently to supplementation. Some people may be more sensitive, others not. So I don't think anything in life is an instant gratification, um,
Right.
a path to
It's not.
success. Right. For anything, you have to give it its fair time, right?
Right.
And I don't think supplements are any different than that. And supplements are also not like a miracle in a bottle by any means. It has
No,
to be combined with healthy lifestyle choices, right?
it's part
Eating
of your
the right
toolkit.
things. Exactly. Eating, sleeping, exercise. These are all things that sort of come together to provide a better immune response. And supplements can be a component of that.
But this is what I love, right? So you're sitting around brunch with your besties. What are you telling them? Like, hey, because I know my friends come to me and they're like, "What do I do for this?" or "What do I do for this?" So when your friends are like, "Hey, what do you think I should be taking?" Especially now, given the current climate, again, not making a cause and effect, but what are some good things that I might want to try, and how long should I give? How long should I give it a shot for before I'm like, this really isn't working for me?
That's a tough one, right? and I wouldn't want to overstep any boundaries from like being prescriptive by any means, but I do feel that, gosh, it's all about taking care of yourself in a holistic way, right? Immunity can be supported through so many different ways. Like we said, eating right, sleeping right, getting the appropriate amount of exercise. Supplements are one. Wearing a mask, absolutely.
There, I said it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said it.
I'm completely in your corner. Don't worry. But yeah, like I think that I would encourage everyone to do the research, right? There are an enormous amount of really incredible supplements out there. Today, we're just touching on one, right? Monolaurin, which I am very, very passionate about, and I think has the capability to be really transformative for a lot of people. But
so okay, I'm going to just stop you there. So if we want to introduce monolaurin, what do you think a fair shot is, right? So are we taking it for a month? Is it 2 weeks we might start to, and again, there's probably not going to be this aha euphoric moment, but
true.
But how,
what I can offer maybe is, and I hate to do it, but maybe anecdotes from others, friends, colleagues, people who have had personal experiences, and customers who are really, really generous with their feedback and reach out all the time. And the best part of working in this space is to get those emails from customers saying, oh my gosh, I've been struggling with such and such for a really long time. And after, finding your product, I feel like a completely different person. It's really rewarding. But what I can say is, from a monolaurin perspective specifically, the general rule of thought is that the low and slow methodology to introduce monolaurin is how most people approach it, right? There's something called the Herxheimer reaction, which you may or may not have heard of.
No.
But it's named after a gentleman, Joseph Herxheimer, who's a scientist who tried to explain this really perverse reaction that your body may get when it's recovering. What I mean by that is, if you take a large dose of antibiotics, for example, you could have this like die-off reaction where like these endotoxin like substances are being released into the body from the death of the pathogen, right? But your body is like issuing this immune or a response that's ironically similar to like having a cold or a flu, right?
So you inflammation. Can actually feel worse
when
even
you're
though
getting
better. Yes.
Exactly right. Exactly. And
that's what happens with the flu shot, everyone. You're not actually getting the flu. I think your body's getting sensitized to it. I shouldn't make this. I'm really passionate about the flu shot. I think everybody should get it. But
I got my flu shot the week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I got mine in like September. Well, no, I actually had to wait because the flu shot's really only good for 6 months. So there is that. I think I actually waited till it was like October because I'm very susceptible to the flu. Very. So I get really annoyed when everybody else doesn't get it because I'm like, you're not helping the rest of us. You're only helping yourself.
Completely agreed. But don't worry, I wear my mask and I got my flu shot this year, as I do every year.
But I know that people, you do have like this almost like a little bit of but it's really, people are saying, it's your reaction to that.
Right. And so some people have drawn a similar conclusion for the introduction of monolaurin. They say that if you want to avoid a reaction, this die-off reaction called a Herxheimer reaction, then maybe you should start taking a supplement at a very low dose and slowly and gradually building up over time to allow your body to adjust and acclimate to the supplement. That's another reason why on the label it says 1 capsule between 2 and 6 times a day, because we can't assume where people are in their supplement regimen or their sensitivity. So low and slow, first couple weeks, I'd say a general window, if I'd be so brash to give one, is probably between 2 and 4 up to 6 weeks before feeling maybe some of that immune support benefit. But everyone's different, right?
Amazing. And okay, so again, I know we have to be very careful with this, but people who might be interested in monolaurin, from what I'm reading online, from what I was reading in reviews, if you have Teju said for strep throat, it helped her. I know that it's bacterial, because strep throat's bacterial, right? Or is that viral?
I believe, no, it's bacterial, I believe.
Bacterial. Yes. But cold sores are viral, herpes viral. So there
that's right,
maybe
it's HSV, exactly.
is some anecdotal support is what we're going to be very careful for, things that could be making it an antiviral and an antimicrobial. We cannot say that in like but I just said it.
Yeah,
I know,
no, I
that's
love
what people are saying.
Right. No, I
trouble.
sincerely appreciate the sort of the dance we're doing here. But what I would say is that honestly, gosh, the research is incredible and it's out there. Unfortunately, for a lot of compliance reasons, we're not allowed to be really explicit about it now and today. But gosh, there's a lot of really cool opportunities to educate yourself. So we mentioned PubMed, Google Scholar. I think I mentioned it in the top. But there's also there's amazing people out there that talk about it all the time. So I think Dr. Alex Reinhardt's a big proponent. Alyssa Goodman, if you're familiar with her, she talks about monoluarin. Dr. Axe has stuff on his page as well. And there are even dedicated pages out there that are dedicated to the research of are summarizing and making it more more digestible.
Yeah.
The research behind monoluarin. So a quick Google search, you're going to find some incredible stuff out there.
Awesome. Damon, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. This is really exciting. Again, this is why I want to do the podcast, is to bring people like yourself on to help educate consumers. And I love that you are saying, hey, don't listen to me. Don't really listen to anybody. Go out and do this research. Thank you for giving us some real clear places that we can go to do that research. And, for everybody at home, I would love to hear if you've had experiences with monoluarin. I feel like this is something that I'm more strongly considering now adding into my regimen, especially now that, we're going into like winter and it's cold and flu season, and who couldn't use a little bit more immune support. Again, if people want to look into your products, which you said are organic, mostly organic.
We use organic ingredients where we can, but we don't explicitly say that, but they're all vegan, non-GMO, gluten-free, manufactured in USA, certified minority owned, third-party lab tested. It's all there, all the good stuff.
Bravo to you. Thank you for that. Thank you for pushing ahead so that we can be better and we can find your products on Amazon. Where else can we get them?
Most online marketplaces. Amazon is the largest, from our own website, naturalpurelabs.com, Walmart, eBay, anywhere that you feel comfortable purchasing online.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, everybody, I want to encourage listeners out there, if there's stories you want to hear about, I want to encourage brands. Like I said, I told Damon, I don't want to do something sponsored, but once we started talking and he sent me a lot of the research prior to this, I was like, you know what? I want people to hear about this. I want to give you the chance to come on and help educate people about this, because I think it's something that consumers want to know. So thank you for your time, sir.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And of course, if you guys have questions you want us to pass along, I'm always happy to do that. You can email me at hello@RPD Podcast. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at RPD Podcast. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday.